No, that's not. It'll
be at 6 o'clock. Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we are learning Maseches Kesubos Daf Ayin Dalet, and we're starting about 12 lines up from the bottom of Ayin Gimel Amud Beis at the words Esvei. Just to review what it is that we're about to ask of Esvei on, but we're about to ask a question on. We started a sugya yesterday at the very bottom of Ayin Beis Amud Beis. This was a sugya where there was a machlokas between Rav and Shmuel. And on the last two lines of Ayin Beis Amud Beis, you'll see a brief encapsulation of this machlokas. We had seen there a case of a man who was mekadesh a woman with a t'nai that she would have no nedarim, and then when he finally married her, it was stam. He didn't even talk about the nedarim. So Rav says that she is considered married and she needs a get, and Shmuel says that they're not. So in that regard, Rabbah had come along and said on Ayin Gimel Amud Beis, Rabbah had this line that the machlokas is only talking about a case of taus shtei nashim, but when we're only talking about one woman, there is no machlokas, and that's where the Gemara picks up with a question on that opinion. Ayin Gimel Amud Beis, 10, 12 lines from the bottom, in the middle of the line. Esvei hareni bo alayich al manas sheyirtze abba. You got it. So a man says to a woman, we'll be married, we'll be intimate on the condition that your father approves. So it says the Gemara, machlokas in the Tanoim. The Tanakama holds that even if the father of the bride is not interested in this relationship, the halacha is that with the t'nai that he said that they're still married. Reb Shimon ben Yehuda Omer mishum Reb Shimon ratza ab mekudeshes lo ratza ab ena mekudeshes. It's dependent on the father's ratzon, like the t'nai said. You make a condition that it's based on the father. It depends on the father. So the condition is real. So says the Gemara, what do we see from here? We see that this breaks the qualification that Rabbah made. Rabbah wanted to say that the only time there's a machlokas between Rav and Shmuel is when there's taus shtei nashim. Here we see that there's a machlokas about even one woman. So it says the Gemara 8 lines from the bottom. No, that case where a husband says to where the groom says to the bride, Hareni boalech al manashe yirtze abba, that's just a question. We don't understand what the father is being asked to do. So Hasam b'hakam iflageh. Their machlokas is about the father. Mar savar al manashe yirtze ha'av. According to the first shita, when he says that it's on the condition that your father gives his opinion on the matter, what was the opinion we were looking for? That he should say nothing. And in fact, and therefore, according to the Tanakama, they're married. But according to the other approach, he was expecting the father to verbally say yes, not just to be silent. And therefore, it depends on whether or not he actually says something. So that machlokas, while it is about one woman, it's not a problem to Rabbah's understanding of Rav and Shmuel from yesterday, because that machlokas was about something else. It was about the understanding of what we expected of the father in that particular scenario. The Gemara asks another question. We have another question from a brisa. Modim Chachamim Rabbi Eliezer. The Chachamim agreed with Rabbi Eliezer in the following case: if there's a young girl whose father marries her off, and then the young girl gets divorced, so then the halacha is that girl is v'hi yisoma b'chai ha'av. She's considered an orphan while the father is still alive. What does that mean? It means that the father is not allowed to offer her up in marriage anymore. He's no longer the responsible party, afal that she's a ketana. So says the Gemara, if she remarries that first husband, they can only do chalitza, but they cannot do yibum. Why? Because when she got divorced from this husband the first time, or when she got divorced from the husband, it was considered a full divorce. But when she remarries this man, it's not considered to be a full marriage. Now, obviously, they're fully halachically married. What does the Gemara mean? Rashi explains that what they're talking about, we can take a look at Rashi. Rashi is the very, very bottom line of the page. The Dibur HaMaschil is ve'ein chazarasa gemura lachzor leblios eshes achiv b'makom mitzvah lihisyabim. So yes, they're fully married, but not as it relates to the mitzvah of yibum. So this is what the brisa says.
What's the practical implication of that?
Just means that there's no mitzvah of yibum. There's like a suffix of the mitzvah of yibum. That's why she does chalitza, but not yibum. So they're married. She remarries. She's married to Reuven. She divorces Reuven and she gets married again to Reuven. Then Reuven dies. So is there a mitzvah of yibum with Shimon, Reuven's brother? So the Gemara says that no, because when she remarries the same guy, yes, you're remarried to Reuven. It's true. And then Reuven died. The problem is that when you remarried Reuven, it's not the same as your initial marriage, because that relationship that really should have led to Yibum, you were already divorced at that point. So the Gemara assumes under those circumstances that ve'ein chazar rasa chazar gemura. And the Gemara continues in this brayso. When is this true? That's only true when Rachel is married to Ruvain and they are married, they get divorced, and they remarried all while she's a katana. Aval, however, if if they got divorced when she was a katana and she got remarried to Ruvain when she was a gedola, or or they got married when she was a katana and then she became a gedola with him and then he died. In those cases, it could even be yibum ochel. That says, this is a 100% marriage. So that's what the brayso says. And then the last shita is Mishum Rabbi Eliezer Amru Choletzes v'lo misyabemes. Even in those latter cases of the brayso, he says that there needs to be chalitza, no yibum. And what is unique about this case? Again, we're questioning Rabba's assertion that Rab and Shmuel only argue in a particular case where it's kishtei nashim, and it's not kishtei nashim over here. So if it's over here, then why is there a machlokes in the Tanaim? The Gemara responds on Ayin Daled Amud Aleph, Hasam Nami b'Hakam Yiflage. They're also arguing about something else. They're not arguing about our case. Mar Savar. Adam Yodea she'ein kedusha ketana klum. According to one Tana, everybody knows that when you marry a ketana, it is a halachically zero marriage, midoraisa. And therefore, when he's with her, when he's intimate, then v'gam aruva l'shem kedushin, then that's bia l'shem kedushin, and that's a full marriage, even if the kedushin was lacking. But if the kedushin was l'shem kedushin, if the bia was l'shem kedushin, then they're married. Mar savar ein adam yodea she'ein kedusha ketana klum. The other shita holds it. No, not everybody knows that if you marry a katana that there is no kiddushin, and if in fact they're intimate at that point, if the husband thought that they were taka married, then his intent would not be. It would be adai to the kiddushin arishonim kabal. Like we're already married, and this tashma shemita is not l'shem kiddushin. So that's what this machlokas says in the brayso at the bottom of Ayin Gimel Amud Beis. So again, we tried to ask a question on Rabbah yet again, but we weren't able to. You have a cough drop today? Of course you do. And a Band-Aid, I presume, but I don't need a Band-Aid right now. If anybody ever needs a Band-Aid, just ask Dr. Karesh.
Yeah, I can't remember why.
All right, thank you very much. Hope this will last. I left my sucrets at home. I'm going to the doctor tomorrow to get me some coating for.
Yeah, I place an order. You got a week.
What?
I place an order.
I was hoping you could get the order for me.
You got a week to go.
I know. This has been pestering for like weeks. It's very annoying. I know.
Now it's go time.
Now it's go time. With sucrets, I'm fine, but without, it's not so good. It's okay. I've done many a Rosh Hashanah with a sucret in my mouth, so it's fine. Anyways, the Gemara says we're at a bit of a connected sugya, and that is as follows: 8 lines down on Ayin Daled Amud Aleph, it's Marnami. We have a statement in the Amoraim similar to what we learned. Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Amar Rav Yochanan, Hamakadesh al Tanai, Uva'al. If a person gets married on a particular set of conditions, and then Uva'al, and then he's intimate with her, really means that they get married. Divrei HaKol ein tzricha himenu get. He holds that it's very clear in the Psak world, because we're moving from Tanaim to Amoraim now. He holds that it's very clear that she is halachically not married, because by the Kedushin there was a Tanai, but by the Bia there was no Tanai. So therefore we assume that the initial Tanaim still do apply and they should not be married. Eisve Rav Acha b'rei Rav Ika bar Achte. Rav Acha b'rei Rav Ika was the bar Achte, was the son of the sister of the previously named person. So there's 2 people in this story. Rav Acha bar Yaakov was the one who quoted Rav Yochanan, and Rav Acha b'rei Rav Ika is Rav Acha bar Yaakov's nephew. It's his sister's son. So he raised a brayso, and this brayso is fascinating. It says the Gemara, Chalitza mutas kshera. If a person gets tricked into doing a chalitza, the halacha is that the chalitza is kshera. Ezo hi chalitza mutas. What does it mean that the person did a chalitza mutas, that there was this misguided, misdirected chalitza? Imagine this case. The husband is such an am haaretz, the wife, they don't know anything. Amar Reish Lakish, kol she'omer lo, chalotzla uvekacha takonsa. This guy is such an am haaretz that you tell him, if you do chalitza, this is how you get married. It's like pixie dust. If you say such a thing, but the person is such an am haaretz, he has no clue what chalitza is. Like we're amaratzim. Okay, let's just call it what we are. But once the shoe comes out, we know. We have like a flag. Like, okay, this is not kedushin. That much I know, and it looks like a chalitza shoe. So that's what the Gemara says. That's the case of what Reish Lakish calls a chalitza mutas, and seemingly the brayso said that person is considered to be married, which that person is considered to have a chalitza. So again, let's say let's Ruvain, it's Shimon and Rachel, right? and Rachel and Shimon are going to do a chalitza, and they say, by the way, this is how you get married. He thought he was doing yibum when he did chalitza. He didn't know. So the halacha is that the chalitza is kshera. Rav Yochanan pushes back strongly on Reish Lakish. Rav Yochanan, ani shona. I've already taught this before. I should say I've already learned this. Bein shenis kaven hu, velonis kaven he. Even if only one of them had kavana, bein shenis kaven he, velonis kaven hu. Either way, chalitza sapsula ad she's kavnu shneim. Reish Lakish, what are you talking about? How can it be that the chalitza mutas is a case where somebody says the way you get married is by spitting next to a shoe? How does that make the chalitza kosher? None of them had any intention to do chalitza. How can you say in such a case, Reish Lakish, that's hafla v'fela? What a crazy svara. By the way, the Gemara doesn't explain Reish Lakish's perspective. It just stops and pivots now. But that for us should be, that's very weird. How did Reish Lakish ever get away with saying that a chalitza mutas like that is kshera? Ella, says the Gemara, we're a third of the way down on Ayin Daled Manal Amar of Yochanan. Rav Yochanan says, what really is a chalitza mutas? It's not that. It's not when somebody lies to you and says the way that you do kedushin is by doing chalitza. Rather, it is kol she'omer lo chalotzla al manas shetitem loch masayim zuz. You do chalitza on the condition that there's 200 zuz. Okay, that's you're doing chalitza and there's money involved. But the halacha is even if the money, even if that condition isn't fulfilled, the halacha is that the chalitza is still kosher. That's a chalitza mutas, where you were misguided in regards to a possible profit that you could have had from doing chalitza. Alma, what does the Gemara extract from this brisa? The Gemara says, Alma, kevan de avad maisa, because something already happened, because they already did the chalitza, because then maybe maybe then we should assume that his original concerns were all voided, were all gone. You told me, a month ago, if you do chalitza, I'll give you 200 zuz. The day comes, he doesn't say boo about it. So we thought that maybe he didn't care about the previous terms and conditions. So then the chalitza actually works. That's what Rav Yochanan says is the case. But the Gemara asks about this. If that's true, that really we look back at those initial moments and say, if he didn't bring it up today, then maybe it doesn't matter anymore. Then how did we learn at the top of the page that this guy who had conditions at the kedushin, and now by the bia he says nothing, that shouldn't that maybe we should say that they're married now, because maybe he doesn't care about the conditions from a year ago. So hachanami kevan debal, but once they have tashmish hamita, maybe we should say that the initial conditions that this person had have been dissolved, and we should say that they're married. How can you be so sure? This is what he's asking to his uncle. This is what he's asking to Rav Acha bar Yaakov, because Rav Acha bar Yaakov said that in this case that ein tzricha get. So let's review what the uncle and the nephew are talking about. The uncle says, if on January 1st of 2021, a man says to a woman, Harad Mekudeshesli, you're married to me on the condition that you have no nadarm. And on January 1st, 2022, they get married and he doesn't say a word. Do we look back at that kedushin and say he no longer cares about the conditions he said at that time because he didn't raise the concern? Is your silence deafening? Or do we say he's still concerned? Which one is it? He hasn't spoken about it in 12 months, so we don't know. So sometimes in parenting, we do this. If a kid asks for something once, we say, let me think about it. And then you patiently wait to see if they ever bring it up again, because you don't know how serious they are about it. And when they ask for the 10th time, when my kids were in 7th grade, they asked for a smartphone. And we said, we'll think about it. And then they asked us every day for like 6 months until they were one of the last kids left in the class without cell phones. Okay, then we made a cheshbon. Fine. So here, the guy said it in January 1st, 2021. I don't want to marry you if you're going to have any nadarim. But a year later, they got married and he didn't say boo. So that's the Rav Acha. Which one was this? The first Rav Acha. Rav Acha bar Yaakov said that that is not called a kedushin, and there's no get required. But his nephew said this brisa seems to prove otherwise. Omar Lei, halfway down, Bar Bei Rav. Bar means the son of, Bei Rav of the Beis Medrash. Oh, you who sit and learn, you who sit in the Beis Medrash, you're so learned. Shapir Ka'amris. You think you're actually saying something good? Michli, let's see what's wrong with what you said. Kol Tana'e Mehecha Garminon. Where do we typically learn Tanaim from? This was a new piece of information for me. I did not know this. Where do we learn this from? Mitnai Bnei Gad u'Bnei Ruvain. Because by Bnei Gad and Bnei Ruvain, there was a condition. If you come join us with Klal Yisrael, you can pick the land that you want. And they picked Jordan, what we now call Jordan. They picked Me'aver LeYarden. So it says the Gemara, that was their condition. And there the Gemara says, there, Moshe made the deal, but the shlichus was able to be done al yedei shliach through Yehoshua. But but our case, like the chalitza, which cannot be done by another person, you can't send a shliach for chalitza. So then lo habetna. Says the Gemara, but wait 1 second. We saw we know that bia, of course, from a husband to a wife, that's only direct contact. We don't allow for shlichus, obviously, when it comes to tashmish hamita. Yet there, the kahavetna, in regards to the case with the father, where we said that, hey, hold on 1 second. He says, I'll marry you as long as your father approves. There, that worked. Why? Because there, says the Gemara, that's different. There, hasam mishum de iskush havayas lahadade. That's because this is a method of getting engaged. It's a method of getting married to start with the tashmish hamita. So it's a little bit different than the world of Tnaim that we would have learned from Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuben. Did you have a question, Michael?
No, I was just moving around.
Oh, okay. I thought you said something. Okay. The Gemara then says 2/3 of the way down. Amar Rav Ula bar Abba Amar Ula. So this is Rav Ula bar Abba in the name of Ula. It seems to be a student and a teacher who had the same first name. Ula, the great Ula that we refer to as Ula, we don't even refer to as Rav, but his Talmud's name was Rav Ula. Funny and fascinating. We do this with Abaye, we do this with Rava, Rabba. There are so many Amoraim that we are. I did this to Rav Huna by accident last week. For those of you who recall, I called him Huna like the Gemara did. That was not nice of me. It's rare. I don't even know how this played out. How does that even work? Do we have?
They're so.
But do we have that in our culture? Like anyone who's referred to, I don't think we have.
But
We do by Hasidic Rebbes, but that's they get a title.
Right, but the ones in the Gemara, the Rav, the Shmuels, I mean, these are the top of the top.
Correct. Uniquely,
I think that's why
is it
Rav-
only Amoraim? Are there any? I think it's only Amoraim.
No.
Ula, Rabba.
Talia.
Oh, Hillel. You're right. Hillel, Shammai, Shumchus, Tana. Right.
Maybe it's actually from that.
What?
Putting the moniker or whatever it's called, and saying, hey, you're not as.
Yeah,
good
no,
as-" That's exactly what I was saying.
We learned the Gemara in Shas that says a Chacham is a higher level than a Talmud Chacham. So it could be that there is a
That's
distinction to
exactly
be made.
what Right, these are the top of the top. They didn't.
Okay. I didn't mean to make a stink out of it, but it is interesting that the Rebbe is called Ula and the Talmud is called Rav Ula. Anyways, what does he say in the name of Rebbe Lazar? Rebbe Lazar Mekadesh b'malde u'ba'al. Wow, this is a fascinating case. So here's the deal. A man lends money to a woman, and instead of her paying him back, he says, keep the money and we'll use that as the money for Kiddushin. Would you marry me? And she says, sure, I like you. Let's get married. So she doesn't pay the debt. And now halachically they're married. That's one case. Al Tanai Uval, that's our case where they make conditions and then they're married. Or Bepachos Mishava Pruta Uval. This is a unique case where the Kiddushin inherently, this is the Pachos Mishava Pruta. Harad Mekudeshes Li, the Coca-Cola tab Zu, Kedas Moshe Yisrael, it's Pachos Mishava Pruta, but then they have Tash Mishamita. They're also married. Divrei Akol Tzricha Himenu Get. In all of these cases, says the Gemara, these are cases where a get is required. Amar Rav Yosef bar Abba, Amar Rav Menachem, Amar Rabbi Ami, Hamakadesh bepachos mishava pruta uval. In a case where someone gives an item that's less than a couple of cents, and then the couple is intimate, tzricha hemenu get. There, yes, they do need a get because beha hu delotai. Because everybody knows what's happening there. Because everybody knows that you can't get married with less than a shava pruta. So if you have a couple where a man says harad mekudeshasli with this tiny little piece of paper with the tab of a Coke can, and she accepts it, and then they're intimate. It wasn't the Kedushin that got them married. It was the Tash Mishamita that got them married because Ein Adam Ose Be'ilas or Be'ilas Nus, because a couple is never intimate. That first time that they're intimate is not stam. It's usually L'Shem Kedushin. But in the other cases, there may well be mistakes, and that does not have the same halacha, and there may not be a get. Okay, so that's what the Gemara says here. Amar of Kahani Mishmei de Ula, Hamakadesh al T'nai Uval, that case that we just mentioned a minute ago, that if a person gets married based on a condition, and the condition is not met, but they're together, tzricha himenu get. Zehaya Maisa, this actually took place. Lo haya koach bechachamim lo tzia below get, and the chachamim couldn't come to terms with an agreement of how to break off this marriage other than by giving a get. And this is la'afuke, to exclude the following shita mehaitana. We see a brisa that's quoted by Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. To Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel Mishum Rabbi Shmuel. We've learned this brisa probably 7 or 8 times in Shas, maybe more. V'hi lo nispasa. If she wasn't forced, then she's asura, hanispasa. But if she is forced, then muteres. And there's a middle of the road case. There's another case as well. Muteres, where even though she wasn't forced, then she still would be mutter to her original husband. What is this case? If in fact there is a kiddushin where the whole kiddushin was a toast. And here's the crazy part. Even if she got pregnant and had a child, and literally the child is riding on her shoulders, meaning they've obviously lived in a marriage format. They've had a child together. Doesn't matter. Turning to the top of Ayin Dalet and Beis, when the kiddushin is a kiddushay toast, bye-bye, I am out of here because you're not halachically married. And these are a lot of the kulas that the poskim will use in regards to cases of aguna. They'll try to undo the marriage. They'll look at the ksuba. They'll find out that one of the edim on the ksuba was, or really the edei kedushin more than the ksuba. They'll find out that one of the edei kedushin wasn't so from. He was a machal Shabbos, and somebody witnessed him. So then the kedushin is uprooted. I'm afraid they were never married. You can have 5, 6, 10, 100 kids. Doesn't matter. You're not married. So that's what the Gemara says over here. Top line, Ayin Dalet Amud Beis. The Gemara says, short blot. We're going to stop. Where are we going to stop? At the top of Ayin Hey Amud Aleph. The Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, we had spoken about a concern in our Mishnah about a woman who a husband said to her, I'll only marry you if you have no nadarim. So what if she then goes to a chacham and says, I want to be mater neder, and he says, muter lach, muter lach, muter lach. The halacha is mekudeshes, then they're married. Itzel Rofe, if she has a mum, because that's also what we spoke about in our Mishnah. If she has a mum and he says, Harat mikudeshes li b'tabazu kadas Moshe b'Yisrael almanas, that you have no mumin, and she really does, but she accepts the gift, and then she goes to the doctor and they give her an antibiotic, and her medical problems are all solved. Itzel Rofe v'ripeosa eina mikudeshes. So says the Gemara, why would we make such a distinction? Why do we say that if a woman is matir neder in Bezdin, then she solved the problem with her condition, and therefore they should be married? Yet when it comes to her medical issues that she solved, that was a condition of their marriage. Why would she not be married? So this is a strange distinction. Ma ben chacham lerofe. Why is it that when it comes to being matir neder, we say that her kiddushin is chal, but when she solves the problem of her refuah, then she is not married? Says the Gemara, chacham oker es haneder me'ikaro. It's the godless of Torah. It's tshuva in the month of Elul. We can undo these things as though they've never existed. Retroactively, she was never the woman who had a neder once they are matir neder in Bezdin. Very powerful. The rofe, but when it comes to the doctor thing is, yes, it's spiritual in a way, because we only have reshus to go to a doctor based on the Gemara of Bava Kama, v'rapo yirapeh, nitan reshus l'rofe l'rape. It's not such a pasha thing that we should rely on anything other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when we go to a doctor, that's behashkafa, behalacha, that's a sugya and shas. That's not stam, that we should just go to the doctor. It is now, but without learning the sugya, it's not so simple. That's what the Gemara says in Bava Kama and in other places as well. I think we learned it here. We learned it somewhere. We learned it. Yeah, it came up somewhere. I can't remember where. Anyways, so the Gemara says that when it comes to v'rofe einam rape elamikanu lahaba, is that when a woman gets healed, so then she's only healed right now. We have this in halachic terms in regards to bris milah. So we have a din that a baby who's sick, if he has a systemic illness, then we have to wait a full 7 days of 24 hours when the baby's healed. It's cholesh shiavri. We have to wait 7 full days. So if the baby gets healed on day 30 at 2 p.m., the bris cannot be until day 37 after 2 p.m., whatever the healing time is. Just had this shiloh. It was a very uncomfortable shiloh. This baby was sick. I got a psak from Rabbi first, the bris should be pushed off. The father of the baby, very bright guy, learned. His Rav is like off the reservation, hashkafically, also a bright guy. He said, that's not how we paskin, but he said, the father came to me with a psak of outside of the Orthodox responsa. And I'm the moa. So like, I was like very stuck. But first said, you cannot do the bris. And the baby says, I'm only doing the bris now. If it's not you, then we're going to use another moa. I'm like, you're going to have the same problem with other moas too, because all the Orthodox moas are going to. What?
What's the rush? I mean, in other words,
not only that, it might be usher. So I said to him,
not be overly cautious with your child. That's what I'm saying.
What can I tell you?
Especially
so he said to me, he's like, you have your Rav and I have my Rav. So I said, I'm telling you, right? I called her right first. I said, how should I navigate this? Rabbi first said, you should tell him that there are no poskim there are no poskim who are matir such a bris. So I did. I spoke to Rabbi first. Just want to let you know. He said that he is not aware of any mefarshim, any poskim that allow for such a bris. Rav Moshe, Rav Shlomo Zalman, you name it. This guy says, yeah, but my Rebbe says it's fine. I said to Rabbi first, guy pasking me a shaila. What am I supposed to do? He told me to do the bris. Yeah, I don't get it. Anyways, the Gemara says, "V'atanya." Hold on 1 second. How can you say this distinction? We have another brisa that says that Eitzel Chacham v'hitira and Eitzel Rofe v'ripeo sa'enu mikudeshes. Both of them are the same. Forget about the distinctions between being matir neder and it's like meikara never existed and refuah that it's only mikanu lahaba. Forget that. It should be enu mikudeshes across the board. Says the Gemara, and this little sugya will bring us to the end of the day. Omar Rava. And there's a slight correction over here that it might be Rabba. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabba lo kasha, Harav Meir, ha Rebbe Lazar. Two different shitas in the brisa. Ha Rev Meir is of the opinion to Amar Adam rotze shetispaze ishto bebezdin. The shita of Rabbi Meir is that he is comfortable with his wife's discomfort in going to be matir neder. It's uncomfortable. Sometimes you have to be matir neder for things that are uncomfortable. You make a neder that's very personal, and you want to go to Bezdin and be matir neder. They say, "What's the neder?" You're like, and you have a weird neder. It's just uncomfortable. So, according to the shita of Rav Meir was of the opinion that it's okay that she has to go to Bezdin, even if it's uncomfortable, and therefore we would say that she's mikudeshes if she is matir neder. Masha'en kein ha Rebbe Lazar, halfway down on ayin daled amud beis, he says to Amar ein adam rotze shetispaze ishto bebezdin. He is not comfortable. He never wants her to be uncomfortable like that to go to Bezdin, and therefore it was never in his mind when he was saying hared mikudeshes that she'd have to be matir neder, and therefore he holds that in regards to the case of a woman being matir neder that it's ein mikudeshes. Maihi, what is the source that brings us the clarity on this answer of ha Reb Meir and ha Rebbe Lazar? Says the Gemara, a little bit of a long brisa, and it's a little choppy. You'll see in the Gemara, there's a quote here. We're not exactly sure about the flow of the Mishnah, but we'll read it as we have it presented here, including the parentheses. It's not in the Mishnah writes. Hamotzias ishto mishum neder lo yachzir. A person who divorces his wife because of an issue of nedarim, he should not remarry her. Mishum shemra lo yachzir. If it's because of motzi shemra, even if the rumor was cleared up, the halacha is lo yachzir, so they should not remarry. That's Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda, we're not looking for the shita either. We're looking for a Meir and Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, kol neder sheyedu bo rabim lo yachzir. If the neder is very public, everybody knows that they were makabel to do X, whatever the case was, then lo yachzir. Lo yadu bo rabim. If it was a very private neder, then there's no reason to not remarry her. Yachzir. Now we're getting to the shitas that we need. Rav Meir Omer. Rav Meir was of the opinion that they're mikudeshes. He says, "Kol neder shetzarech chakiras chacham lo yachzir." Any neder that not every neder needs a chakiras chacham. Some of them he can do himself. Anything that's chakiras chacham that she has to go to an actual bezdin of 3. A husband can't be made for these kinds of nedarim. Then lo yachzir. If it's that kind of neder, they shouldn't marry. V'she'enu tzarech chakiras chacham. If she doesn't have to go to a bezdin, a tribunal of 3, and the husband can be made for neder on his own, so then says the Gemara yachzir. And the in parentheses reads 4 lines from the bottom. Rebbe Lazar Omer, echad tzarech ve'echad eino tzarech lo yachzir. No matter what. Rebbe Lazar says, I don't want my wife in Bezdin doing that. I don't want her doing that. It was never what I had in mind. And this is where we see the chakir between Rav Meir and Rebbe Lazar. Rav Meir was of the opinion that, yes, sometimes a woman has to go to Bezdin. I'm okay with that. Therefore, if she goes to Bezdin, they're mikudeshes. Masha'enkin, according to Rebbe Lazar, he's never okay with that. That's why he says over here that echad tzarech ve'echad eino tzarech, whether or not she has to go to Bezdin, I'm not doing that. That's not what I want my wife doing. And therefore, even if she does it, they're eina mikudeshes. And Amar Rebbe Lazar says, "Lo asru sarich elam ibnei she'eno tzarech." This is a very convoluted line, but in short, what it basically means is I don't want my wife in Bezdin. You can see the Rishonim here that explain this line, a bit of a difficult line. And lastly, my taima to Rabbi Yehuda. What was the reason for the shita of Rabbi Yehuda? We saw in the middle of this Mishnah, which is about a little bit more than halfway down on the page, that Rabbi Yehuda was of the opinion that if there's a neder of the rabbim, then he cannot remarry this wife. But if it was a neder of a private neder, then he can remarry. What's the reason? Why? Because the pasuk says in regards to the givonim, lo hikum b'nei Yisrael kinishbu lehem nesei ha'edam. So this is a pasuk in Sefer Yehoshua. These people pretended to be a different people, and then they made a neder. The Jewish people, they made a pact with the Givonim that if X, Y, and Z, then we won't kill you. And because it was a neder and rabbim, they weren't able to backtrack from it. So even though they really deserve to be killed, so that's why we learn from over here that you cannot backtrack from a neder. The kama rabbim, what is considered the number of people for whom a neder is considered public? The kama rabbim, Rav Nachman Reis Lakamar Shlosha, a simple 3. Yomim is Shnayim, and Rabbim is Shlosha. So that's how we get to the number 3. Rabbi Yitzchak Amar Asara, because Ada Ksiv Behu, because the famous word Ada, we use this for minyan. We'll stop right here. Yirtzeh Hashem will pick up tomorrow night with Daf Ayin Hey. Wishing you all a beautiful night. Just some technical notes for this coming week, which is Rosh Hashanah. Sunday, we're not gonna. I don't know exactly what we're gonna do, but we're likely to learn an extra day, either Friday morning or Sunday morning, to compensate for Sunday not learning because Rosh Hashanah and everything. But we'll figure all of that out. Hopefully, I may even want to go ahead a day on Rosh Hashanah to de-stress Rosh Hashanah itself. I'll let you know. Some of these blot might not be too hard. I'll keep you posted. Have a great night.
You haven't decided for Monday.